Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Tuesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning, Leo. How's it going?
Very well, my friend. I'm very well. You're looking fresh-faced this morning. Probably back from like a 20-mile hike or a pumping gym session, right?
No, you caught me. I have to admit, I actually had a bit of a lie-in this morning. I don't know. Sometimes in the winter, my body just needs that. And so I took full advantage of it. And I slept in until like 8:30 and I didn't work out yet. I have, I signed up for improv theater classes, which I absolutely love. And I have those every Monday. And It's like 2.5 hours. And I feel like that actually is a workout. So I've been kind of lazy on Mondays from now on because it's a lot of running around and pretending to be a spy and all this kind of stuff, you know? So.
I totally get that. Do you get anxious or nervous just before you're about to start doing the improv? Does it kind of give you that adrenaline hit? Because that's really a big part of exercise as well. The adrenaline hit, I think, is important.
I do if it's a performance. I will say, I think the adrenaline hit, I get the same because even if it's just in a class, you're still performing in front of your classmates. And the idea of not knowing what's going to happen is the thing that I love the most about improv, but it's also the thing that like makes me nervous, right? It's what makes it such a cool art form to me. It's like before every show, the MC always says something like, what you're going to see tonight has never been performed before and it will never be performed again. And there's something really cathartic and beautiful about creating something just for a split second of beauty rather than, you know, something that's going to be ongoing. So I don't know. It's been a good life lesson for me.
I like that. There's beauty in the transient stuff, right? Yeah. You have to tell us when you're doing it so Jasmine and I, when we come to Barcelona, can actually come and watch because we'd love that. We'd love that. I mean, we're both sort of performers ourselves, so you might have to sort of stop us getting on the stage and getting involved. Actually, don't invite us. We'll just embarrass ourselves.
So you can actually come. So almost every Friday night at my, it's all in English, by the way. It's called BIG. It's Barcelona Improv Group. And every Friday night they have a jam, which it means the audience is welcome. So any Friday night that you're in Barcelona, let me know and we'll get some tickets and we'll go jam.
I'm down. It sounds great. It sounds good. Okay, so no exercise for you, but come on, what have you been up to? You must have been doing something fun. Is the weather nice? Is it sort of February sunshine creeping in?
The weather is a little bit gross. I hate the cold. And so even if it's really sunny, but last week also it rained a couple of days. I don't know what's happening with the weather. I need it to be sunny again. It's sunny this morning, but it's supposed to rain all week. So I have been throwing myself into the thralls of real estate investment. It's shocking for our audience, I'm sure. But the rental flat is coming along really well. It should be finished in another like week or two. And I'm already eyeing up my second one. So I've been busy visiting and running numbers and decision making. So
I love it. Well, look, just in time to become your own short-term rental management business when they inevitably realize that the regulation in Barcelona is a mistake and they reverse it. So I like what you're doing. You're just right now. You're just acquiring assets, right? Ready.
That's right. I'm at the ready whenever they change their minds. I don't think it's going to happen, but that's okay. We'll play by the rules until then, and just do normal rentals. It's okay.
Yeah, I love it. Good for you. Is it in the same neighborhood? Are you looking? Yeah, around the area.
I am. Yeah. For me, it's so funny. My boyfriend says he's like, you are. It makes me so nervous. Why are you always investing in the same area? But I have this. I don't know. I have this hunch. I could be totally wrong, and maybe I'll go completely bust. But I just have this hunch about that area. It's so close to the city center. There's so many good opportunities of apartments that just haven't really been cared for. And I hope this doesn't sound like holier than thou, but I feel like I'm doing good in the world by like using, some capital that I have to take an apartment that hasn't really had a lot of love and making it beautiful again and turning it into somewhere that, quite frankly, like I would be really proud to live. And so I feel like I'm doing a public good by bringing life back into the city. And so I don't know. I really love the area. I don't know why. It's just close to my heart.
I'm going to let you have that. I'm going to let you have that as a public good. There's lots I could say about it to tease you, but I won't. I think I'm going to let you have it. So I've had a revelation, Sarah, which is that I need to start going to the gym. And I'm saying it here on air so that you can publicly shame me and keep me honest, because I just love bloody running too much. The whole time I'm just running, just doing the cardio. But I got freaked out because I read something about how you physically cannot put on muscle after the age of 50. Now, asterisk, this is not a health podcast, so that claim is unsubstantiated. That's just me sort of doom scrolling or listening to something. You probably have views on that, Sarah. You're more into gym stuff than me, but I just need to get on it. I need to stop hiding. So I'm going to sign up for the gym this week, and I'm going to have gym stories for you next week. Okay, keep me honest.
Good for you. I will keep you honest, and I'm curious to see if you or maybe you're like me and that's why you're drawn to running, because you don't like the system. So I never have been super into the gym, and I signed up because I was like, oh, I need a little bit more motivation. And actually now I just do stuff at home and I'm so much happier. I love like a at-home workout, calisthenics kind of stuff. Never really needed a lot of equipment. So I'm curious. Also, I'm like excited to see you bulk up. So that will be the true measure. Nobody cares if you don't see the results, Leo. So we're going to check out the results and we're going to bully you if you don't do it.
Maybe it's because we're going to be on stage together in April. Then I'm like desperate to bulk up just to impress you somewhere. It's sad, isn't it? It's so sad. All right, let's get into it. Sarah's got a hospitality highlight for us, which we just couldn't ignore. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. Then we're going to go on to talk about agritourism, whether farm stays are the next big thing. And also, we are going to talk about the Edinburgh City Council decision to relax short-term rental regulations around the Edinburgh Festival, what this means for Edinburgh, what it means for the wider industry, and is it something to celebrate? Sarah, start us off with the hospitality highlight.
Our hospitality highlight. This one caught my eye this week. As we have talked about of late, there is this huge deal where Casago is going to acquire Vacasa, and we were all super excited to see how it panned out. And then last week, what do we see? But a new player coming into the market. So what we thought was going to be a done deal between Casago and Vacasa, there is now an investment firm called Davidson Kempner who is putting their hat in the ring. So they're trying to. The original Casago offer was $5.02 a share, and David Kempner is proposing $5.25 per share, so 23 cents per share higher. But the most interesting thing for me about this one is it's a totally different kind of offer. So the Casago would be a strategic acquisition. It's somebody in the industry. It would most likely remain kind of with the same, I guess, heart and soul, but just trying to go back to basics and do it right. And the hyperlocal approach, whereas the Davidson Kempner would be totally different, which it's all about the money. And I don't know how I feel about it. Leo?
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, and we know that the Monday crew are going to go through it in more detail as they always do, but we just couldn't resist it because the implications for Europe are massive too, right? How this deal goes down. I agree. So reading around it a little bit, we know that they already have links to Vacasa. It's quite strong links to Vacasa, and that they specialize in buying distressed assets, right, and trying to turn them around. So you could look from the outside and say, would it just be a fire sale, right? Is it just a case of like really stripping back on service delivery? Whereas we know in this industry, it's all about local relationships, right? You have to be in it to win it. You have to be bumping into your host at the grocery store as a property manager, to try and maintain those relationships and get people to feel strongly about your business. That's why the bet from Casago has always been the franchise model. So I agree. If it does feel like we're at a point in the industry where this deal will signify a lot of what comes next, because I imagine if the Casago deal goes through, then you'll see other people really closely looking at that franchise model and if they can bring it to Europe. And if it doesn't, well, I would hazard a guess that you'll just see Vacasa continue to shed owners potentially because people just feel less. They just feel like there's less investment in them as hosts. Who knows? I think it takes me as well to home to go buying into home, which we still don't know too much of the detail on that and how they plan to run that business. But we have a similar look there, which is, Into Home has spent a long time building relationships with its homeowners. And this is Europe. So this is old Europe. Like, people are very conservative. So the idea that you've been giving your property to someone, I'm sure there's lots of owners that if it was done badly would just stop renting out their homes. As simple as that, right? Because they might not be trying to monetize the asset that much. So I do think there's slight parallels there with how Home to Go decide to roll out that Into Home partnership.
I think it's an interesting one. For me, just the juxtaposition of like they didn't have their hats in the ring and now all of a sudden they're jumping in with full force. And when we thought something was a done deal, I mean, the Costco thing was, we were already supposing what was going to happen, how it was going to go. And so I don't know. I love a last minute entry. I love gossip.
What do you think? I mean, money talks, right? It's a higher offer, is it?
It's a higher offer. And not only is it a higher offer, but it's a higher offer from somebody who'd be investing in this from a financial perspective solely. And so that to me is interesting, although it's still, I mean, let's be honest, it's a massive devaluation from when they IPO'd, but it is interesting that it's a higher offer. It means that if they're offering that, they've run the numbers. So I don't know. I just want to know what their plan is, though. And I don't know how with Costco, I felt really good. I felt like, okay, they know what they're doing. It's going to go back to the basics. It's going to be the hyper local. It might get things really off the ground. Whereas more investment funding, is it more of the same of what Vacasa's already, is it a mistake they've already made in the past and just being drawn in by the money, which could lead to even worse implications, I guess, in the future. I don't know. I'm very torn about it.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think you've said it there. It's it is potentially more of the same versus something different. So maybe that's enough for the people involved to think, come on, we've tried this before. We've tried this route. Let's actually give it a different go. Well, look, one to watch. And again, as I say, we know the GMH Monday crew's talking about it as well. So go there for deeper dives on that. Sarah, there's so much news around at the moment, and it feels like the trend of the Gen Z and even us slightly aging millennials as well seems to be wanting to beat the crowds at the moment. We know that our urban market in Europe is especially regulated. We're going to go on to talk about that later with Edinburgh. So we picked an article in Reuters about agritourism and the implication for farmers and how they can jump on this. So do you want to go through that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a super interesting article in Reuters this week, and it, for me, caught my eye, although it's US based, and most of the stories kind of given here are based on the US. I see so many parallels with Europe. And so basically where the article goes is that, agriculture, it's a tough gig these days. It's really difficult to make money. The price of crops is going up and down. There's not as much investment from the government in terms of subsidies as there might be for other industries. And so these guys are really hurting, especially, if they have a bad year and it rains too much, or there's natural disasters, or their crop isn't producing what it used to. They're in a world of hurt, and it can really have a massive impact on their financial situation, right? For these farmers and people in these rural areas. So for me, what was super interesting about this was this idea that kind of emerged during the pandemic of these farm stays. And so you can go and stay on a local farm. And sometimes that means you stay in a big farmhouse and it's like a bed and breakfast kind of situation and you rent a room. Sometimes there are, a little bit more innovation with like tiny houses on the property, or like those domes, or like a teepee house, which to me always I find exciting. As long as there's a bathroom close by, I don't mind camping. Contrary to popular belief, but I'm more of a glamping kind of gal, but it could work. And
snap, buddy.
Yeah, being out in nature, it's just so cool. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was in the article, it's talking about some farmers who have done not only that with the Airbnb, but they're also expanding that into experiences. And so it's like, well, I have a bunch of cows. Why don't you come help me milk a cow? And they like charge people to go milk their cows for them, which is it's really smart. It's a thing that I bet like you and Jasmine and the kids would absolutely love. It's hands-on experiences. It's something different. There's also like, and this is something I used to do as a kid and I loved it, right? Where you'll like go to a farm and you go strawberry picking or, sunflower cutting or whatever the case may be. And then they design these activities. So it's like, well, there's nothing else going on. Let's go cut sunflowers and make your own bouquet. And like city people would pay tons of money for stuff like that. And so for me, the interesting thing in this article was like, it's a great way to supplement that income and make it more sustainable, but also give people an opportunity to get out of the city, get a little breathing room. And it's not just in the US. So farm stays on all kinds of rental platforms increased 77% over the last 5 years. That's according to AirDNA. So we know it's true. And so I think, there is a massive opportunity here, and especially in Europe where we're facing an ever changing political climate when it comes to short-term rentals, in particular as it relates to regulation. This could be a really neat silver lining, not only for people to have an opportunity to get into the game, but also for farmers, which we know they're hurting. I mean, in Spain, they're protesting all the time. They're in Madrid, they're dumping trucks of oranges because it's like, this truck of oranges literally cost me more money than I was able to sell it for. We're in a crisis and they're going to have a pivot. So that's my soapbox. What do you think, Leo?
Yeah, I really enjoyed listening to your soapbox, as always, my friend. You hit the nail on the head. So let me add on to it slightly without repeating the great things you said there. So you've got a group of people, farmers across Europe, and obviously in the US as well, and other areas, but Europe and the UK, who are very entrepreneurial. They're self-employed. So, and I've got a bit of an insight here because my dad, for years, he sold insurance to farmers. That was his gig. Let's not mention that I've maybe, let's keep out how we've both ended up in the risk game. That's fine. That's no need to save that for therapy. But and he would always say that the farmers that were doing the best were the ones that could diversify and would think about like, building a farm shop on their land, or also making jam as well as milking cows and working very, very hard at it. Because what you have as a farmer is land and buildings as well that you can convert. So there were lots of people, but I think pre-internet days, where they would be also putting holiday cottages on their land and trying to advertise them in magazines and newspapers. So that idea of a farm stay is has its roots right back to the fact that you have land, you have outbuildings, you're probably quite handy, you're probably quite good at building things because you're working with your hands all day. So you're prime candidate to become a developer and a property manager at that, and you're on site the whole time as well. So again, this could just be an idea that's really now gonna, we know it's been bubbling on for years and the people have always stayed at farms, but could really have a good 12 to 24 months because of the regulatory landscape. And I don't know if this would discount them from all regulation, because once you build a house, I'm not sure then if it would then fall into some regulation. But the fact that it's on your land, it's private land, you've got the space, it feels like it's a pretty good bet that you wouldn't have as much regulation without, even if you're not immune to all of it. So I think it's a really good thing to do. I can't think. I think it's interesting for us property management types as well in the industry to think about how we can get our hands on this type of inventory, but it's doing all the things we want it to do, which is it's bringing tourism to new areas. It's taking it out of the crowds and away from the cities, which we really want. As you said, it also helps connect families with the idea of farming. And so if you're trying to show people the value of what you do as a farmer, what better way to do it than to have them come and stay on the farm for a couple of days and them to go, oh my God, this is really hard work. I can't believe this farmer only gets 4 cents an orange, right? And so it creates like advocacy and awareness around what we're trying to do. And it's a bit folksy. It's a bit old school. That's why I like it. I think it's kind of, we've talked a little bit that, in an industry about going back to our roots slightly, these like glamping and outdoors and cabins in the woods and Y-frames. And this feels like it powers that, because you're talking about a cohort of people that actually own a lot of this land in the countryside. So yeah, I think it's a really, really interesting trend. Speaking from the UK angle, because that's a market I know really well, I'd say the appetite is huge for that type of thing. And if there's a younger generation of farmer that's inherited a farm and was looking for new ways to monetize the asset, I think that would be, they'd probably be very naturally thinking about glamping and building cabins and all of that good stuff. But go back a stage, what I think the potential blockers are, it's a really bloody hard industry. So you might be exhausted from milking the cows every morning, and you do need to invest to be able to get your properties and your outbuildings up to the standard they would need to be. And that might be a challenge for you if your business itself isn't doing particularly well, because let's be honest, we know the economic forecasts look mixed at the moment for Europe, and it's up in the air, and the same in the UK. So I think that would still remain the big challenge for me, is like it's time and revenue, time and money, capital needed to invest it to get up and started.
I think this could actually be a really cool opportunity for the Airbnb co-hosting segment in more than one way. So first and foremost, if you are a farmer, and just as you said, you probably don't know much about running an Airbnb, but you're on site and you're willing and you're good with your hands and you're probably personable and willing to open up your home and your land to people. And so this could be a great opportunity, I think, for them to partner with a co-host who would be great at coming out and doing the proper kind of photos, really knowing how to market the property. And maybe from the angle of not having the capital, maybe that's an arrangement that they could work out of like, hey, I'll be your co-host, or I will list the property. It'll be wholly in my name. And because of that, I'll put up some of this capital, and they basically would sign some sort of like a rental agreement with the owner of the farmland. And then maybe that could be an opportunity for that person to actually invest in the business. And so from the farmer's perspective, they're getting the benefit of the revenue without having to learn all this new expertise that maybe, as you said, this learning curve would probably be pretty steep. And also to maximize profits that would come from those farm stays. So crazy idea. You heard it here first, people. If it takes off, I'm expecting my royalties, but I think it's actually a really cool idea.
I think you're right. And I think that the sort of the rural holiday home companies who have a more of a reputation for it, the Sykeses and the Host and Stays in the UK, for example, of this world, they'll already have I'm sure, a portion of their properties that are farm properties and barns on farmers' lands. I'm sure of it, because again, there's always going to be someone, the landowner, who's happy just making 80%, not making 100%, right? And then your agent comes in and makes 20. So yeah, I agree. I think it lends itself onto the agency model. I think I said it a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about rural secluded. So I won't labor the point too much, but it is, if I was a property manager right now in my city looking for new opportunities, that's another place you'd be going to try and find them, right? As long as they're within a drive of the market that you know how to service. And you're exactly right. It's leveraging the expertise that you have. Really interesting trend. We'll keep an eye on it.
Awesome. I think that may be a perfect time, Leo, to transition from farm stays and rural stays to what is going on in Edinburgh, buddy. Give us the story.
Yeah, fun, isn't it? Well, potentially fun. So we've got an article here from Short Term Rentals, Paul Stevens, who I believe, I have it on good authority, is in Mauritius or is on a beach somewhere at the moment. So how he's managed to do this, I'll never know. This guy's he's so hardworking. He's even writing from the beach. So Edinburgh eases short-term letting rules during the festival period. So for anyone not that familiar with Edinburgh, of course, Sarah is, because she spent Christmas there. Mm-hmm. Capital of Scotland, beautiful city, and it has a whole summer of cultural events, which are phenomenally well attended. It from people from around the world, but also a lot of performers and artists that are there for maybe just 6 weeks. There's a lot of comedy. There's also classical music. There's lots going on. It's really well known for its comedy fringe festival. So the City Council has voted to change its licensing policy on short-term lets. The policy itself was controversial at the time. It was fought by the STAA and the ASSC, saying, and it was citing that it was sort of overly draconian and would affect things like the Edinburgh Fringe and Edinburgh Festival. And I guess it's proving to be insufficient at dealing with what the city's needs are, especially during festival period. So as a result, property owners who want to rent out their principal residence, either an entire home or a spare room, during the peak periods of the festival will face fewer regulatory obstacles when making an application. So I'm quoting from the article, key health and safety requirements will be watered down somewhat, including temporary exemptions on tests and requirements relating to gas, electric and fire safety. So here we go. I said, is it good news with a big question mark? Like, here we go. In many ways, it proves what we've said as an industry for a long time, that you can't have a one-size-fits-all policy. Let's go into the fact that rural Scotland has a complete lack of hotels, and things like glamping and cabins and holiday cottages are needed to support the local economy. The Highlands are beautiful, but what keeps the pubs, the restaurants, the shops, the cafes open is visitor numbers during the summer. Now, that needs to be made sure it's balanced to make sure we're not ruining the landscape and tourists are not coming in too many numbers. But believe me, at the top of Scotland, they'll tell you they want more visitors, not less. Right. Or they want better ways of housing those visitors to ensure that there's a broad-based economic benefit for the whole community. Edinburgh is a really good example. How can you compare Edinburgh to the Highlands? Well, you can't, because you have this influx of people that are ending up at the moment just being in substantial accommodation. Inappropriate accommodation is what I meant to say. So you might be in a hotel for 6 weeks or a hostel for 6 weeks, paying too high a price given the quality that you're staying in. So, you're really not providing that sort of great experience that people would want when they're coming to Edinburgh. And we all know that when you go to a city, if you stay in an amazing place, you're more likely to fall in love with it, go back, do all that good stuff. Now, I think people always accept that during festival accommodation's squeezed anyway, so they just want to get a room wherever they can get one. But people are not going to accept paying £1,000 a night for a hotel room just because there aren't any short-term rentals. So in one way, it's a success. The other side of it, of course, is we're essentially saying that health and safety matters only to the point where things get busy, and then it doesn't matter. And so professional property managers are still going to be subject to the same regulations and rules that potentially aren't quite fit for purpose, although the health and safety ones I think are always a good thing, but casual hosts are not going to be. So again, they have this risk of what type of accommodation people going to get put into. And the more you take away the professional element of the industry, and by that I don't just mean property managers, I mean cleaners, people that are like in the industry available to get these places up to standard. When you go through a peak, the less professional the whole peak's going to be, because we're not going to have the infrastructure to support it. So in many ways, it's a win, because it proves potentially that the need to have a more balanced approach. In other ways, it just feels like another defeat for the industry because things are being done in this haphazard fashion. Big rant from me. I'm not much of a ranter normally, actually, but I really ranted then. Sarah, what do you think?
I have a few thoughts. I'm going to start with one that you probably know this, Leo. But when I was in Edinburgh, one of the most interesting things that I learned on one of my tours is that it is completely legal to camp in a cemetery in Scotland. And so during these summer festivals, which some of our audience may not know, all of the cemeteries are full of people just camping. So where my mind goes is kind of two places. I think first and foremost, is an Airbnb that maybe hasn't passed a health and safety inspection better than camping out in a cemetery not only from a comfort standpoint, but also from a public safety standpoint? Like, if you're camping in a cemetery, where are you showering? Where are you going to the bathroom? It's not good. Like, it can't be hygienic, especially for an extended period of time. Not to mention, I don't know, just sleeping in a cemetery, the thought of it gives me the creeps. I understand that the Scottish have a very different relationship with cemeteries and with death than maybe those of us in Spain or even in the States do. But like the whole idea of like sleeping in a cemetery, it's like stuff you used to do on a dare when you were a kid, playing Truth or Dare.
I'm never doing that.
No
I'm never doing it. I'm sure there's a business idea in it somewhere, but I'm never doing that. If that's the only option, I'm going somewhere else. Sorry.
I also think that for me, this is a prime example of, for example, properties that are professionally run would be benefiting from a different type of regulation. So not just a free-for-all where we're going to throw out the health and safety standards, but something like, hey, we're going to have health and safety inspections. We're going to do them really quickly. We're going to make it easy to get up to speed. Maybe that is the person who wants to put their property on pays some kind of fee to the inspection company. And it's like, hey, we'll get your property up to code for £200 or whatever it is. And maybe it's an opportunity for a service like that. So that way we're still controlling the health and safety. And maybe there is a temporary license that is given, which is like, okay, you have to pass this, you have to pay this fee for us to come and inspect your property and make sure it's up to date and that you're up to code. If it's not, we will do it for you for some flat fee. Maybe there's like a pack, a health and safety pack that can be purchased. And then maybe this is where something like the 90-day rule in London comes in, or I think this is very South Carolina, so I'm going to show where I'm from right here. But anyone who has hunters in their family knows that there is a season, there is a hunting season, and there is a quota during that season of, how many deer you can bring home, so to speak, or whatever the case may be. So maybe this is the same sort of thing. And you still need a license to hunt. And if you do it outside of those specific dates, you get a massive fine. If you bring in more tourists or more whatever, in this case, it would be tourists, I guess. In the hunting example, it would be deer or whatever you've shot. Then you're supposed to, you pay a fine. And so for me, I can't believe I'm making this. My grandpa would be proud. I can't believe I'm making a parallel with hunting because I've never hunted in my life and I find it repulsive. But, if there's something they've kind of done right, it's balancing the ecosystem, which in this case is the sustainability of tourism and of travelers, with health and safety and what actually makes sense and making it sustainable. So I don't know. I've gone off on a soapbox now, and that parallel was
Did you
unexpected.
Did you know you were going to talk about hunting when you came on this morning?
I
did you wake up thinking, today I'm going to reference Grandpa and his hunting?
If you had told me, it was the cemetery, I must have brought it out.
Yeah, I think it did, didn't it? I would say I like the example. I wonder if do we see tourists as deers just trying to be sort of caught by restaurateurs and hoteliers and short-term rental managers alike, hunted. What you talked about there, you mentioned 90 days and sensible regulation. Again, all of this requires the need to sort of consult with the city and the industry, which we feel didn't really happen effectively or appropriately. So when I started by saying, is this good news? That's where my mind went, was, will this now create a reopening of that conversation? Because there does need to be inspection. Each inspection could give you a 3-year license or a 4-year license, so you wouldn't have to repeat every single year. You could do some of it so that you could lessen the burden on every single year. But what we're really trying to do, any part of that Europe and the UK should be trying to do, is just house your tourists, is get your tourists in safely and give them a really good experience. And if we start the conversation in that way, that's a really good starting point. But then you have to make sure it balances with the long-term needs of your residents, which we also know. So like the fact that you need sensible long-term planning and investment to build enough houses for your community, right? Whether that be students, whether that be people that have lived there for hundreds of years and never had access to proper housing, whether that be people that want to come into your community from different parts of the UK, bringing investment, bringing money with them, and give them a place to live. And I feel that you have to do both, right? You have to think about your tourist that's coming in for a week, because that's good revenue for your city, and think about your resident as well. And if you can start to raise those two things, you don't have to demonize the other to the other, and you can start to remember that there should be space for everybody. And if there isn't, that's where things like sensible regulation come in. We've talked about 90 days in London. You could do 60 days in Edinburgh. 60 days in the summer would probably do it. Now, clearly, as a short-term rental enthusiast, I'd say, go 90, go 100, because then there's also going to be a really good level of property available for tourists that come out of season. Because I know some crazy people that like to travel specifically to Edinburgh when it's cold. Now, I've got no idea why Mauro wants to do that, but he does. So, there you go. So there is the occasional person who wants to do that as well. We're well over time. Sarah, I think we've got to leave it there, my friend. I've got to ask you, though, what are you guys doing for Valentine's Day?
Oh, nothing. I genuinely haven't even thought about it. So in Spain, we don't really do Valentine's Day. We have something that's different that's called San Jordi, which is, at least in Barcelona, and it's on the 24th of April. And it's like the Catalan Valentines. And so on that day, we do an exchange, which is like, traditionally the man gets the woman a flower or a rose, and the woman gets the man a book. The new modern way is everybody gets a rose and everybody gets a book, because why do I not get a book? I like reading too. So we have a little pact that's like, okay, I'll get you a plant that is like some kind of plant, and a book. and vice versa. And so for me, it's a really lovely tradition. And you walk all over the streets, and the streets are just filled with people selling roses and books. And a lot of famous authors come, and they set up stands where you can go and talk to your favorite authors, and they'll sign their books. And it's an amazing, amazing festival. So we don't do Valentine's Day because we do it better in April. What about you?
I like it. I really like it. Well done, you. You've inspired me to buy Jasmine a rose. I'm normally terrible. I normally forget, but again, I couldn't. I thought you'd have an interesting story, and you have. Okay, I'll buy her a rose. Done.
Buy her a book. She'll like that better. She can read.
Yeah, actually, to be honest, I'm not to throw either of us under the bus, but having 2 children means that like your time of reading is not. I mean, I'm looking forward to picking up books again in 5 years' time. That's going to be great. So I think it will just be the rose. She is an incredible reader normally, but yeah, the minute you get a moment to yourself, you just close your eyes and go to sleep. That's it.
Fair.
Okay, my friend. So nice to see you, and to you at home. Please, we've talked about some interesting things today. I'd be really interested to know if anyone has any stories relating to the agritourism farm stays article we talked about, and also Scottish property managers or property managers in cities that are seeing sort of regulation that's challenging. Always interested to get your thoughts as well. So if you've enjoyed today's show, please hit like, share, subscribe in all the usual social places. Also, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, please go and leave a 5-star review and a comment. Until next time, thank you.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Logify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.